Hi there. Thanks very much, everybody, joining us today. One more day for some great sessions. I'm Jackson Felden, and I have here with me, standby, ready to go for his show in a few minutes, Ankit. That's going to talk and explain for us all about cloud security posture management using Microsoft Azure. And before get things started, I just want to play a quick video. And thanks very much for our sponsor, Fatian. He's providing, the company, a great company, providing lots of, let's say, different hardware to support security, like, multi-factor authentication, so on. Let me play a quick video to demonstrate what they do. Okay, great. Yeah, Ankit, if you want to maybe just explain a little bit what you do on your day-to-day, what's your, let's say, background to support this presentation today, and then in a few minutes I will share your screen, and then I would say we are ready to go.
Okay, great. So, hi everyone, Ankit Rao this side. So, I work as a senior software engineer at Zscaler here in Pune, India. So, I primarily work on the cloud security aspects of things. So, on cloud security aspects of public cloud to be precise. So, I have been working for about 4+ years now in recognizing the configurations that we can use and implement the security hygiene and maintain a good security posture to avoid security threats on public cloud. Also, I've been speaking a lot on cloud security these days, and I've been recognized by the Amazon Web Services as a community builder.
Oh,
So
nice.
I am an AWS community builder, and yeah, that's about it. And as you maybe know, I've been talking a lot security, and also I am a cloud and cloud security enthusiast per se.
Okay. Oh, exactly like
Yeah.
me. Yeah. Security is definitely, cloud security is a hot subject, and
Yes.
anybody moving things to the cloud really needs to have a good understanding. And yeah, I'm looking forward to myself, for your session, today. And everybody watching us
Absolutely.
now, if you have any questions, I was talking to Ankit. We kind of agree. If there is any question, please just feel free to type on the chat box, and then as the questions come, I will interrupt Ankit and ask the questions straight away to make a hopefully a dynamic session. Okay,
Yeah.
Ankit, let me just share your screen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I believe everybody can see your screen now, and we are good to go. I will be here on the background. If you need anything from me, let me know. Otherwise, I
Sure.
would say the floor is yours. And then, I will pop in, pop out when needed if any questions, come.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay,
Thanks a lot.
enjoy your session.
Okay, great. So, hi everyone again. So, as I introduced myself, so today we'll be talking around unraveling the cloud security posture management using Microsoft Azure. So, before moving into the session, I would like to thank the team, the LATAM GIRA LATAM online speaking team, for providing me with this opportunity. And I hope everyone enjoys this session and has at least a little to learn and start their journey into cloud security. So moving ahead, so as I mentioned earlier, I've been talking a lot around cloud security these days, and there is a big motivation for that, to explore new things in security. And the biggest motivation is that the global public cloud service market is expected to reach around a whooping 623 billion by 2023 worldwide, which is a huge number. And as you all may be aware, the cloud adoption is on the rise. But with that, there is still a lack of awareness about cloud security among organizations and a constant fear of losing their data confidentiality, and which are the factors basically restraining the market growth. And further, to add to that, the biggest identified cloud threat occur mostly due to misconfigurations of cloud platforms. So I'll maybe focus on the misconfiguration of cloud platform. What does it mean? So basically, when you're using cloud services, you have to configure certain aspects like providing names and then maybe some network components, setting up SKUs and whatnot. So there are some basic configurations that you as a user of cloud have to identify and mention during configuration of that service. But what's happening now is, due to lack of awareness maybe, or maybe to reduce the go to market speed, organizations or maybe teams are first concentrating on getting the a stable product ready, and then exploring the security aspects, which basically cause the biggest cloud threats. And to explain that, we have this a stat that is supplied by MarketWatch, which states that 62% of the biggest cloud security threats mostly occur because of the misconfiguration of the cloud platform. And misconfiguration, as I said, this is completely in our hands. What we are using, it's completely in our hands how we configure it. And if we do it carefully, just by implementing a few best practices, this can be controlled, and hence we can implement a level of cloud hygiene and a cloud security hygiene and a good security posture and avoid attacks. So basically, that is why I tend to speak a lot about it and talk about basics of how we can implement cloud security within any public cloud. Okay, so moving ahead, the agenda of today's session is cloud security for sure, and we'll explain and see how it's a shared responsibility model. Further, we'll talk about what cloud security posture management is. We'll have a brief introduction to the Microsoft Defender for Cloud, that is the hero for today's session, and we'll have a quick demo on that. And then, as we already have talking about this, we can take questions in the mid of the session, or maybe if there are questions, we can always have a Q&A at the end of it. Okay, so let's get started. So before starting into or deep diving into cloud security, we'll understand how cloud works in very simple terms. So what exactly is cloud? So cloud is basically just sharing of resources over the internet. And this diagram just beautifully illustrates how it works, right? So there are bigger companies like Amazon, Azure, Google Cloud, and many cloud service providers who have big data centers, and they are sharing their services across the internet in the form of public cloud, which are getting used in office spaces, homes, and anywhere you want. And then, we'll talk about what cloud security then means. So cloud security basically refers to the technologies, policies, controls, and services that protect the cloud data, applications, and infrastructure from threats. So as we saw in the earlier diagram, so whenever we are using cloud security, in simple terms, whenever we are using cloud, in very simple terms, what cloud security refers is like, we should refer the, we should secure the network that we are, using to connect to the cloud services. Then we should secure the data that is getting stored inside the cloud. We should secure even the applications and even the compute instances that are there in the cloud. So any minute thing, that is a component of a cloud service provider, the security of that is what cloud security means in very simple terms. And further, cloud security is a shared responsibility model. And why so? So we'll just take a look at this diagram. So if you notice, we'll start from on-prem services. So if you see the on-prem, for the on-prem, all are marked in blue. That is, the security is the responsibility of the cloud customer. So basically, what does that mean is like, when we have our applications or services on-prem, the hardware security, maintaining all the racks and the network cables, as you may be aware, and everything. So starting from that, the security, the physical security, the host infrastructure, and all other aspects have to be managed by us because it's our infrastructure. So that is why on-prem, every layer has to be a responsibility of the end user. But as you move towards the right, towards IaaS, that is infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service, the responsibility of the end user is reducing. And today we'll most probably or most possibly be concentrating on the infrastructure as a service aspects. And if you notice here, the physical security and half of the host infrastructure and network controls are the responsibility of the cloud provider and not us. And how that is so? So again, we'll go back to the earlier diagram that we have. So if you see here, the physical servers and everything lies within the cloud provider's premises. So the physical security of those data centers, those applications and whatever racks are there comes within them. Further, the network security there, I mean the network security within the data center, is again the cloud provider responsibility. And what is our responsibility? Our responsibility is configuring the network on the cloud portal, first of all, the application level controls, identity and access management. So suppose we create a VM instance or a VM on Azure, so who can access it? Which, which network or from which source IP will it be accessible? What data, has to be stored there? How we can encrypt the, storage volume of that VM? All those details have to be configured by the end user. So this is how the cloud security is, shared between the cloud provider as well as the end user. So we can't interfere in the cloud provider security aspects. So we'll talk about only what we can control and how we can improve the security of things that we are using on the cloud. So I hope this is clear. This is a very brief explanation of what cloud and cloud security is. And maybe I'll pause if there are any questions, or else I'll maybe move ahead.
Yeah, so far no questions. Yeah, all good. Yeah,
Okay,
you can
great,
keep moving.
great. So moving ahead, now with cloud security, now comes compliance standards. So why compliance standards, right? So we'll constantly ask these questions to ourselves. So when we say implement cloud security, so we can't just go and do random things, right? We need certain direction that what has to be done actually, so that we can achieve a state of cloud hygiene, right? So to help us with that, there are various standards or compliance standards across the globe. Various standards coming up by open source publications or say private bodies. They are coming up with various standards. So these are the few most well-known standards. So I'll maybe briefly talk about each one of that. So CIS is the Center for Internet Security Standard, so which basically provides us with a list of best practices. We have NIST, we have PCI DSS standard. So I'll talk about PCI DSS a bit more. So PCI DSS basically is the payment cardholder information data security standard. So if you you may have already grasped this. This deals with the payment cardholder data. So basically with the fintech sector. So if your organization is into finance or fintech services, this is the standard you need to go to. So basically you have to be compliant with respect to this standard, to gain trust basically. Similarly, there is SOC, there is ISO, and there is HIPAA. So HIPAA is again a very well renowned healthcare standard. So if your organization is into a healthcare industry or operating a healthcare product, then HIPAA standard is a go-to for you. So for in that case, if you are HIPAA compliant, so basically you can operate anywhere in the world, or maybe not anywhere, but you can operate in more than 90% places in the world. So that is what these standards provide. They provide you a base on starting with cloud security, getting certified with these things, and moving on with your smooth journey towards security. For a PCI DSS, maybe I'll give. I mean, I'm not sure if this will be identifiable to all the audience across, but I'll give an example of an Indian app which is called Paytm. So it's basically a money transfer app which we use here. And when we basically open that app, we see that they mention it's PCI DSS compliant. They'll show this logo and they'll say we are compliant with that. So that basically generates a trust with the end users, and also ensures that they have followed certain security standard to be in this business, and they are following all those regulations as well. So that's about cloud security and compliance standards. Moving ahead. Now, till now we have covered what cloud is, what cloud security is. We learned about a few basic compliance standards. So what are the challenges now in implementing cloud security even after we know all the things? Now talking about that in brief, so there is still a lack of cloud security architecture and strategy. So as I mentioned in the beginning, whenever there is cloud adoption, the first thing is go to market thing, or maybe organizations tend to more work towards a beta release first, and maybe in the process ignore some of the critical or maybe basic security configurations. So the architectures that are getting designed are still lacking cloud security inclusions. It's there, but it's still not up to that level. Further, cloud is distributed, and its ever-changing nature is again a challenge in implementing cloud security. So as we talk, the cloud is a shared service over the internet, so we don't know exact location. So even if we know what region we are deploying a resource in, we don't know where exactly that server or that rack lies, right? And it's distributed, and due to various things, maybe security updates and everything, the physical locations also keep on changing, and we don't exactly know where our resources are located, right? Further, there is lack of personal experience in cloud security measures. So as we saw, implementing cloud security is not an easy task, because it's always evolving. There are a lot of compliance standards, and it becomes very difficult to find an individual who is, has expertise in all of that. So that is one more challenge. And then there are these compliance and regulations which you talked about. So even if there are standards set, someone has to be there who can understand that, and implement that further. So there are two things again involved there. So these are the biggest challenges that get involved in implementing cloud security. So what is the answer to this, or what is the solution to this? So basically, the solution, or maybe the terminology that got introduced, to deal with this nature of cloud and implementing security, is cloud security posture management. So in simple terms, it was defined by Gartner as a continuous process of cloud security improvement and adaptation to reduce the likelihood of a successful attack. And this basically was coined keeping in mind the unique nature of cloud that requires a new security concept, because it has to address the various challenges involved, in the cloud services of its distributed nature and constantly changing infrastructure, right? So what does CSPM help us with? So CSPM helps us with developing and enforcing end-to-end security policies. So it will help us in implementing, policies revolving around the configuration settings, the security configurations of the cloud services that we are using. It helps us with the risk and vulnerability assessment and risk visualization. So now, once it helps us enforce end-to-end policies, it will help us with, visualizing that policy. So even if we have, policies in place, but, when we use cloud services, it's not like few resources, a few tens or hundreds of resources. It's like thousands of resources which we use over the cloud. So we need a visual view instead of, a normal boring line by line view, right? So visual view will always help to, grasp things better. So CSPM also helps us with that. And further, it will help with the compliance monitoring, incident response, and DevOps integration. So compliance, as I said again, is a very important pillar of implementing security, right? So it will help us with the compliance monitoring. It will help us with the incident response. It will help us with the, alert integrations of whatever is happening in your cloud services, and it will help you integrate it with your DevOps pipeline so that you can notify it to your security teams or the people who are involved in maintaining your infrastructure, right? So this is how briefly, cloud security posture management will help us in, implementing cloud security and improving our cloud hygiene, right? So I'll move ahead with the, Microsoft Azure's answer to CSPM. So before there, I'll again pause for a moment if there are any questions, or maybe we'll continue with this. Okay, so I'm assuming there are no questions. So
No,
we'll
yeah, that's
move
right.
ahead
Yeah,
with
I was,
the
yeah. Oh,
defender.
so far so
Okay.
good.
Okay, great.
Okay.
So we'll move with the, Microsoft Azure's answer to implementing cloud security posture management. So Defender, or basically Microsoft Azure, introduced Defender for Cloud as a CSPM tool for its end user. So it started off with as Azure Security Center in its earlier days, but over time, Azure or Microsoft has added further capabilities to the Security Center and rebranded it as Microsoft Defender for Cloud. So what is Microsoft Defender for Cloud? So it's basically a tool for security posture management and threat protection. It protects workloads running in Azure, hybrid, and other cloud platforms. So now this is, this is the hero of the feature of Microsoft Defender. So not only does it protect your, Azure resources, it also provides, security scanning for hybrid and other cloud platforms like AWS and Google as well. And in this modern age of cloud adoption, right? So as per my experience, or what I feel, is like organizations tend to use multi-cloud instead of a single cloud, because each cloud has its own benefits, and that's why organizations tend to move towards a multi-cloud thing. And with Microsoft Defender providing you integrations with AWS and Google as well, so this becomes a go-to for these guys who are using multi-cloud, so that they can view all their cloud workloads across public clouds at a single place, right? So this is a very big and a great leap by Defender towards implementing a cloud security, right? It also provides the tools needed to harden your resources, track your security posture, protect against cyber attacks, and streamline security management. So basically, all the features or all the terminologies that CSPM wants us to implement, that is all provided by Defender to us. So again, we started off with cloud and cloud security and compliance, and then we thought of the solution, and then the solution is also simplified to us by Microsoft Defender, right? So I mean, as we are moving ahead, we come to know that yes, I mean, by just exploring a bit about Defender, even everyone can move or maybe start their journey with implementing cloud security, right? So let's move ahead. We'll talk about a few Microsoft Defender features. So Defender basically fills three vital needs as you manage the security of your resources and workloads in the cloud and on premises. So it's basically continuously assesses. It provides you a secure score. So secure score, as we'll explore it in the demo as well. Secure score is basically the score of your security posture in the subscription or account. So higher the score, better your cloud security posture is. So what Azure has been very smart here. So what they have done is, so it's a tendency in all humans. So whenever they see a score, they want it to be at the maximum level, right? So what they have done is they have assigned scores to each and every security configuration that a user has to follow, and once the user follows it, it increases the score of the overall score of your subscription or your AWS account or your GCP project, and with that comes some happiness, right? So it's a very smart move which indicates the security posture of your account. It provides you with vulnerability assessments. So what vulnerability assessments are like? This is a very different domain of cloud security, right? So till now we have been talking about IaaS security, that is infrastructure as a service security. But when vulnerability comes into picture, it actually talks about the security inside your application. So basically, if you are using a virtual machine, you have some application running inside it. For that application to run, you may have installed certain third-party tools as well, right? So when you install third-party tools, some vulnerabilities, or maybe some cloud threats or some security openings come into in the form of maybe code leaks or something like that. So maybe just to take an example, say if you install Git in your VM, so Git is again an application, right, which has a backend code. So there may be some security vulnerability or security loophole in their code through which an attacker can get inside your VM. Maybe if he gets into the VM, he can get inside your code and further get into your database and whatnot. So vulnerability assessment deals with providing details of security pointers which come in when you install application inside your VM, right? Then it provides asset inventory. So asset inventory is basically the list of all services, all cloud services that are present in your Azure subscription, or if you have integrated your AWS account and GCP product, it will also provide all the list of services that are running in those clouds. It provides regulatory compliance, so basically mapping your security configuration with compliance standards so that you can implement compliance standards as per your requirement. It also talks about the file integrity monitoring. Further, it will help secure things. So it will provide security recommendations. It will help implement just-in-time VM access. So basically, timely or maybe time-controlled VM access. It will help you, implement adaptive network hardening, and it will also help you implement adaptive application control. Further, it will help you defend. So basically, it will help you defend, your subscription or maybe resources by providing security alerts and integration with Microsoft Sentinel or other SIEM tools. So you may ask what SIEM is. So basically, SIEM is are tools which basically help visualize your security findings further. So they also provide detailed or analysis of your security findings. Some of the examples of SIEM tools are Splunk, there is Datadog, and many others. So integration with these services as well is possible through Defender. So that's a lot of talking about security and Defender. Now we'll move towards the most exciting part is what I feel. We'll move towards the demo. But before the demo, if there are any questions, I'm happy to take that. Yeah, so I think I don't see any questions. So we'll move directly towards the demo. So here I am on my, Microsoft Azure portal. So navigating to Defender is quite simple. We just, search it on the global search bar, or maybe I have pinned it in my favorites. So I'll navigate to that. Okay, so this is the default view of the Microsoft Defender for Cloud. Now here, if you would see, I have added Azure subscription. I have added one AWS account as well as a GCP project as well. It will provide you details of the assessed resources, the count, active recommendations, and security alerts. And it will provide some security posture details as well, which is quite low, right? So ideally, I should basically try and remediate more things so that the posture or score increases, and I am happy, and my cloud my cloud subscription is also happy. Okay, so we'll get started on how do we configure this. So configuration is simple. You need to navigate to the management tab and go to environment settings. So in the environment settings, your Azure subscription will automatically come up. So whatever Azure subscriptions are there, under your tenant, they'll automatically come up here, right? So they'll automatically come up here. Further, if you want to add an AWS account or a GCP project, you can just click on Add Environment and click on Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud Platform. So we will just have a brief of how to add Amazon Web Services. So if I click on it, I just need to give a collector name. So I can just give it a demo AWS. I can onboard all the management account, that is the AWS organization, or a single account. And then I can create a resource group through which all the data will be saved. I need to enter the AWS account ID. I'll maybe just select it as a default for now. And then there are plan selections available, so you can configure as per your requirement. So if you want to configure for all the services, or maybe detailed scan for your EC2 instances or everything, you can select the plans. You can configure the access. So how cross account access works for AWS is like the Azure Defender creates a role in the AWS account, which is assumed basically to pull all the required data. Okay, so this is how AWS onboarding works. Similarly, in GCP, we create a service account, which will basically facilitate the access of Azure Defender APIs and the Google Service Provider APIs. Okay, so this is how the basic onboarding looks like. Now we'll move towards the settings. So once you have enabled or maybe once you have onboarded the cloud accounts, you have various Defender plans available. So for Azure, you can configure advanced plans. So in basic plan, basic services or basic security controls come for free. With the advanced plan, they'll provide you more details about the security posture and security aspects, right? So there are different plans for servers, app services, your databases, storage containers, and whatnot. Okay, then there are email notification, as I mentioned. So you can send out alerts to your security team or the one who is managing your infrastructure, and notify about alerts. So you can notify about high alerts basically, or select all, or as per your convenience. Then, as I mentioned, there are CIM integrations possible. So you can configure your CI/CD integration or enable unified solutions through here. Further, there are security policies as well, right? So we talked about various compliance standards like CIS, HIPAA, and whatnot. So you can enable all those standards through here. So for the demo purposes, I have enabled PCI DSS, I have enabled HIPAA high trust standard, and I have also enabled the Azure CIS benchmark for the demo. Okay, you can add more standards from here as per your requirement. Now moving ahead, we'll explore aspects of the Defender one by one. So maybe we'll go to the overview section again. So again, as I said, overview, just let it load. So as I said, overview will give you, as the name suggests, it will just give you an overview of all the cloud accounts or services that you have onboarded. So here we have details of the Azure subscription, AWS account, and a GCP project. The security posture is there. Then it will talk about the regulatory compliances. So currently we have enabled the CIS and other standards. So what it's saying is there are 76 controls specified by GCP CIS, and out of which only 34 are past controls. So we are lagging behind in security is what this is indicating. It will also provide workload protections. There are firewall managers as well, which will basically not cover in this session due to time constraints. Okay, so moving ahead, we'll move towards the inventory first, because this is the base of starting to explore things. So as I mentioned earlier, so inventory basically will provide you with the list of all the resources or the cloud services that reside in your subscription account or GCP projects. So if you notice here, there are a ton of services. So there is GCP service here. There are some Azure virtual machines available. There are storage accounts from Azure, and if you notice, scroll a bit down, you'll see EC2 instances, meaning VMs from AWS as well here. Right. So I'll just scroll down a bit. So yeah, these are EC2 instances from AWS. So this has basically scanned each and every aspect or each and every integration that you have enabled. Now, what does this indicate? So if you notice here, you'll see some red and green, bar graphs. And what do they indicate? We'll just go to a VM to understand that. So we'll just cover some Azure services. So when I go to that, VM where we had that indication, so that indication basically illustrates how many security findings have been generated for that resource, that is the demo VM. So if you see here, there are a ton of high severity findings that have been generated, and the status of our resource is unhealthy, which basically tells us that this is at risk and this has high severity. So what severity indicates is that what is the impact of you not enabling this security setting. So it's very high. So if you don't enable this security configuration, your resource is highly vulnerable or highly prone to attacks. Right. So we'll just explore one of this recommendation that has been given. So what this recommendation says is management ports of virtual machines should be protected with a just-in-time network policy, I guess. Right. So just-in-time network policy. So what does that mean? So it will provide you with a description as well, that Defender for Cloud has identified details of this and enable just-in-time access control to protect your VM for internet-based brute force attacks. So it will provide you a description which will help which will basically motivate you to enable that service. It will provide you valid reasoning that what is the significance of this policy and why do you need to enable it. Okay. On top of that, it will also provide you with remediation steps. So it will provide you with a quick fix option. So basically through this fix button, it will automatically be remediated for you. You need not do anything else. Just click this fix button and the security configuration will automatically be added there. Else you can do it manually as well, and there are these manual remediation steps provided as well. So if you see, it will tell you details that how to enable just-in-time VM access. So it will tell you to navigate to the certain resource, go to that configuration, and then maybe select it and save. So this is how simple Defender is making us to understand, helping us to understand security configurations, right? We'll maybe move towards one more policy. Yeah. So what this policy states is that all network ports should be restricted on network security groups associated to your virtual machines. So what does this mean is that your virtual machines should not be open to the internet, right? For the right reasons. It should only be accessible through certain known sources or basically secure sources, not open to the internet. So that is what Defender tells us to implement. It will provide you a basic description. It will provide you with the remediation steps, that how you can implement that, and with the help of that, you can basically take required action. Further, if you see here, you can take action from here and create a logic app to do this automatically. So what you can do is in the background create a logic app and then associate it with this security policy. And then basically whenever you see that Defender has reported a security violation for this recommendation, you can directly come to that policy and trigger that logic app, which will do the needful by enabling the security policy or maybe enabling the security configuration that was suggested. Right. So this is basically an overview of the inventory section. All resources will be listed down with their security posture or recommendation status. Okay. Now we'll explore the other section. So the other section is maybe we'll navigate to recommendations first. So recommendations basically will provide you with a detailed view of the overview page. Okay, so you can have cloud controller specific secure score. So my Azure subscription is 57% secure. Okay, my AWS account is 40%. My the secure score is 40%, and for my GCP project, the secure score is again 40%. Right now, it will basically help you filter out things here and provide you some more additional policies. So if you see here, the first category is enabling encryption at rest. So it will basically talk about all the encryption related configurations that you need to take care of. Then it will talk about some basic security configurations. Then it will talk about some network related security aspects. So if you see, ensure that SSH access is restricted from the internet. So that is one. Ensure that default network does not exist in a project. So basically, default security group or maybe a default NSG like in Azure will basically allow traffic from all the sources, right? So it's ideally recommended that you don't use it. So these are the security related recommendations that come up. And if you notice that here on the right side, there is a score associated with each category. So as and when you go ahead and implement or remediate this security configuration, your secure score will automatically increase based on this score, right? Good motivation, right, to implement security configurations or maybe implementing security for your services, right? So that's how Azure has come up with a good solution. It will also provide you details about what is the potential score increase that will happen if you completely remediate that particular category. So it's a whooping 13%. So maybe we can go ahead and implement that first. And yeah, that's about it. Okay, now we'll move towards the security alert section. So as I said, on top of providing all these security recommendations in an easy to understand format to the users, Azure Defender also helps us set up security alerts. So if now you have understood security configurations and you are constantly monitoring your secure score and all those things, and a day comes when your secure score is 100%, right? So now you say you are all okay and you are relaxing, but then as I say, or maybe as the cloud grows or your application grows, new services keep on getting added, and you must be aware of all those services getting added and have the developers or maybe the implementation team followed proper security configurations or not, right? So in that case, what you can do is set up alerts. So set up alerts for all this security details that take place. So what will happen in that case is, so if a new resource get added and they have not followed security configuration, your security team or whoever you want to get alerted will be alerted with the details that this specific resource has been created without following the security configurations. Further, it will also alert you in case someone updated a security configuration. So suppose you being a security guy, you have enabled encryption, but the other day someone else comes from your team and just disables encryption from that particular storage account. So in that case too, Defender will send you a notification that this activity has occurred in your account and someone has disabled encryption on the storage account. So based on the email and details, you can take according actions, right? So we'll maybe view some sample alerts for this Cosmos database. So if I just navigate to the sample alert, I'll just click on view full details. So if you see, this alert is telling us that it's an attempted logon by a potential harmful application has been detected. Okay, so basically some SQL server or penetration testing or malicious activity has been detected. And these are the details. It will provide you with the resource details. So basically the client service name, what is the application that has been impacted, and also provides the details from where that malicious IP or attack is being happening. So this being a sample alert, you'll just see a dummy address here, and this is a dummy state and a dummy city. Okay, so this is how alerts are getting generated, or maybe Defender helps us with alerting mechanism as well for maintaining the cloud security, right? Maybe we can move view few more alerts. So maybe we'll move view one sample VM alert. Okay, if I click on view more details, so if you see here, digital currency mining related behavior detected. So basically, in this world of crypto, right? So you may be aware that this is a common scenario where compute of cloud users is being used by crypto miners for their benefit, right? So this helps them basically extract crypto for free, whereas all the compute bill is getting paid by the cloud end user, which is very bad, right? So this alert basically helps us detect that. It will provide details of which VM is compromised and what are the details as well, right? So file details, host name, host login session, and whatnot. Quite a good insight, right? So yeah, again, implementing this is again very simple. You just need to enable security alerts and configure an email address to which the security alert has to be sent. Okay, so moving ahead, we'll move towards the last section of the demo. So that is the regulatory compliance. So we talked about compliance a lot and the significance of having your infrastructure compliant with certain standards if you are working in certain domains like fintech or healthcare and whatnot. So here, what does that do, or what does Azure Defender help us with? It helps us, simplify these rules that have been defined by these organizations into the simple, security policies that it has generated. So if you see here, I just highlighted HIPAA High Trust, and if you see here, through the naive view or basically a general view, we can't understand what does it mean and where do we need to implement these controls, right? So we can't understand what control of operational software is directly, I mean where exactly to implement things and changes. But what Defender is doing is, I'll just scroll down here. So if here again there are subsections which are again very difficult to understand, but Defender, what does it do is it will just tell us about the control details. So what control has to be implemented here is what it will provide, right? So if I just scroll down here, so for this control of operational software, these are the security policies that we need to remediate. So machines should be configured securely. Windows machines should meet requirements for security operations audit and whatnot. So basically easier to understand things which we can basically understand by just reading is what Azure Defender is doing here. So it will do it, or maybe map easy to understand security recommendations with this highly complex security standards that are to be followed. So it will do it for Azure CIS and GCP CIS and whatnot, whatever you want and whatever integrations are available in Azure Defender, right? So for PCI DSS as well, a very good mapping is available. So we just need to follow or implement the security policies illustrated, and it will basically help us achieve this security certification. And one disclaimer here is that Defender is just helping you attain a level of security posture with respect to different standards. It doesn't guarantee that if you implement these security postures, you will be certainly certified. There are high chances you'll be certified, but Azure doesn't guarantee that even after following all those recommendations, you'll be certified by PCI or HIPAA or anyone, right? So basically, there are more rigid checks that may take place or may not take place, right? So there is high chance you'll get certified, but yeah, there is no guarantee that Azure provides, and that's most probably because you should not get back to them in case your certification process fails, right? So yeah, I guess that's about it from the demo section. We'll move back to our PPT again, and maybe we'll pause for a moment and check if there are any questions.
No, let me just check. Yeah, so far so good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, really nice session. Defender for Cloud can be a little bit overwhelming with all the information available, but yeah, it's good to see
Great.
how everything is clicked together. Yeah, great job.
Yes. Okay. So moving ahead, now we'll just basically talk about what we saw on the Defender. So these are the basic findings that are provided by the Defender. So it will provide you details of lack of encryption on databases, storage, application traffic, which involves sensitive data. So basically, it provides details of the status of in transit and at rest data encryption, right? It will provide improper key management, encryption key management, such as not rotating keys. So again, these are some basic security controls that are provided by Defender automatically, which we just need to navigate to. We just explored a few because of time limitations, but yeah, these recommendations are also provided there. It will also highlight about overly liberal account permissions. So basically a security setting related to IAM, IAM related entities. So there are cases where entities should not have admin access, but we still leniently give them admin access just for the sake of it, right? Instead of providing them the bare minimum permissions. But that is what Defender will highlight as well, that a certain service principal or a certain user has highly liberal account permissions. You can then go ahead and reduce their permissions and follow the principle of least privilege for that. It will also provide details of MFA enabled on critical system accounts, and suggest you that MFA or multi-factor authentication is enabled on those system accounts. It will provide details on misconfigured network continuity, and basically overly permissive access rules as well. So this one we saw as well, right? That it was highlighting a VM which was having a network security group which was open to the internet, right? So this is what Defender will also highlight. It will provide data storage export to the internet as well, and also provide insights on if logging is enabled to monitor critical events, right? So it will also help us enable logging as well, right? And further vulnerability assessment and OS baseline misconfiguration and alerting on top of that. So a lot of data is getting provided. It's now up to us to basically make use of the data, right? So it's now getting served to us on a plate, so at least we can explore a few things and at least start implementing some security configurations and get started on the security journey. This is what Defender is trying to motivate, and I too in the process will motivate all of you to do that, right? Now Defender still has certain limitations. So Defender is still in the very initial phase, and there is a good room for improvement around the coverage of more security best practices. So as I talked about the disclaimer, it doesn't guarantee that you'll get the certification from HIPAA and various security bodies. So there is still a room for coverage of more security best practices. Further, there is no on-demand scan facility, right? So I guess many of you may have noticed, and sorry, I did not, I forgot to tell about that. So once you enable Defender, the first scan takes about 24 hours. So that's what is mentioned in Azure documentation. So it may take up to 24 hours for all your resources to come up and the scans or maybe the security mapping and all the features of Microsoft Defender to light up. So it's an automatic process. The limitation, as I mentioned, there is no on-demand scan facility. So which means that you cannot initiate a scan at your will. It will happen automatically in the background, and Azure does not provide a facility to the users to initiate a security scan right now or maybe at their will. So that is one limitation for now. And further, the alert mechanism is expected to improve over time. So the alert mechanism that we explored, so it basically has an AI and ML processing in the background. So as soon as, or maybe as and when the models are evolving from Azure's end, the alert mechanism will further improve, right? So these are the current limitations which will be shortly overcome by the Microsoft Defender team, right? Now moving ahead with the pricing aspect. So everything comes at a price, and if Defender is making your life easy with implementing the security configurations, it will also come up with a price. The price, I feel, is uh, still in control. It's not putting a hole in your pocket, but yeah, it's not too less as well to start off. So for servers, I mean, to start off, what I would suggest is you can opt for the free tier. The free tier 2 provides a lot of security policies and security data. And once you are done with the free tier, you can then move towards the advanced security aspects. So these are the pricing only for the advanced security aspects as well. So if you want advanced security details, you can enable that from the environment setting page, and these are the cost implications that are involved for different service types. Further, I mean, the cost remains the same across cloud providers. So if you even onboard an AWS account or a GCP project, the cost for VMs and the similar services in those other public cloud providers almost remains the same. There is negligible difference. And last but not the least, I have pointed out references. So if by any chance I'm told to share this deck, I'll share this, and you'll have the details of the references as well. And again, there were no questions, but I would love to hear from you if there are any questions. And if not today, you can reach out to me on my Twitter or my LinkedIn, and I'm happy to answer all your queries. So You can note this down and give me a follow and a connection request, and we are good to go. Please don't hesitate to ask questions. I'm always there, to talk about security. And
Yeah,
again,
thanks.
yep. Thank you, team.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
So
thanks very much
that's it
for
from
all
me.
the insights you brought. As I said
Yes.
before, Defender for Cloud and Azure, all these things can be a little bit overwhelming when you start kind of digging into those subjects. But yeah, really great job and great presentation from you. And
Right.
yeah, I think you explained too well. No questions, no questions so far. I believe everybody is happy, with
Okay.
all the
Yes.
learnings, provided.
Great. Thanks a
Okay,
lot,
do you have
Jackson.
anything
And I
else to add? Otherwise, I believe we can pass the word for our next speaker.
Yes. No, so just final thank you. And I hope, everyone listening around, at least gains some insight or some knowledge and are good at least to start their journey, right? So just a basic journey with the security, with cloud security. So that's about it. Thank you from my end. And yeah, bye-bye. Enjoy the rest of the sessions.
Okay, Ankit,
Yeah.
thanks very much again
Bye-bye.
for joining, and thanks everybody who was connected for the last few minutes. I will pass over now to Dwayne and Michelle, and they will take over for the next session. Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jackson. Michelle, you want to share your screen? We could get going a little bit early, give you some extra time.
Yep. Let me just see
Get things set up here.
if I can share the correct screen here, because I'm not used to use this tool. Yeah,
which one to share?
Yes. So I just wanted to make sure that I was sharing the correct screen.
Everybody on the live stream, just stand by while we do our transition here, and we'll get going here in a moment.
So can you see the PowerPoint screen now? Okay, that's what I want to do.
Yeah,
okay, so we can begin whenever you want.
Well, let's give it a few minutes. Let everybody, if everybody wants to take a quick break. Since we're running a little bit early on time, we will let's start at in about 5 minutes. Give everybody a chance to take a comfort break, refresh their beverage, depending on where they are, whether it's water or a Coke or something alcoholic if it's later on in the evening. But yeah, let's give everybody a few minutes since we are running a little ahead of time. But it looks like everything's good. Your audio's good, video's good. So I think we're okay. We'll just give it a few moments here, and then I'll kick you off.
Perfect.
Proper pronunciation, Michelle Mendez.
Michelle Mendez, yeah. It's funny because when I say my name like that, people always think, like the English speakers, they always think it's a female name, like Michelle with double L-A at the end, It's kind of the same pronunciation.
It's really, where are you from, Michelle?
I'm from Brazil.
Brazil? Okay.
Yeah.
I know, it's a European's version of Michael, really.
Yeah. I think it's actually a French name, right?
Yeah, I believe it is. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It was French. That's what because I took French in high school, and I think like anybody that was named Michael got the name. They gave everybody French names. So if they're Michael, they got Michelle.
But it's actually pretty common in Brazil. This name.
Is it?
Yeah. But it's funny. Some people call me Michael as well.
Just still try and put that hard sound on there, right?
Yeah.
Us silly Americans.
Yeah, but that's okay. Where are you based?
I am in Michigan in the U.S.
Michigan, oh, cool. It's funny because I always see your posts on Twitter and LinkedIn, but I kind of didn't realize you lived in the United States, Because you are kind of so engaged with the guys from Cloud Launch and Learn. I really thought you would be kind of based on the UK, maybe,
Yep. I have probably more followers and everything in the UK. When I first got started in doing stuff in the community, their lunchtime and evenings fit a lot better with me because it was more midday or early morning for me, and I'm usually an early riser and want my evenings to be to myself. So I grew a lot of my network with people from the UK, like with Hugo and Cloud Lunch and Learn. Met a lot of them. Like I met Hugo the first time doing Global Azure through a user group in the UK as well. So yeah.
That's funny.
It was just it just worked out that way. As everything, like when everything really got virtual and everything, it worked out better with my schedule to be able to do things like this and it not interfere with my 9 to 5 work.
Especially the good thing is that you don't need to travel if needed to do presentations in events like this. So
when it was virtual. I got a lot of global. You get a lot of global exposure doing these virtual events, right?
Yeah.
Give it another minute or two, just let everybody get back.
If you want to wait until the right time, that's fine.
Let's just wait till the top hour, just in case people are just
4 more minutes
tuning in specifically.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we do our kind of mini podcast here,
What is your topic?
Yeah, my topic is SharePoint and Power Platform.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look forward to it. I want to learn more about SharePoint.
Actually, what I'm going to demo and explain here is not specifically about SharePoint, but like how can you use Power Platform to extend SharePoint or customize it.
Very nice.
So like it's not going to be like a session teaching you how to do it, but kind of showing the art of what's possible or not using the Power Platform, So I have a few demos to show it.
Some of the automating and creating forms and things like that. Mm-hmm.
Like interacting with the same data in different shapes, basically.
Yep. Done a little bit of that, playing around with it in different Power Platform labs and things like that. It's really, the integration between the two is really something.
And the thing as well is that like previously, if you wanted to customize SharePoint without writing too much code, there was another way of doing things. But like the other tools are going to be discontinued, and that's the way you have to do it now. Like it's either this or Pro Code, So.
Forced evolution.
Yeah, but actually it's pretty good, especially if we compare with the previous tools that we had, man. It's a great evolution.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, one more minute. When it goes to the top of the hour, I'll get the introduction going and get you started.
All right. Yeah.
All right, we are at the top of the hour. Good day, everybody. My name is Dwayne Netwick. I'm moderator for this session, and I want to thank everybody for attending the GIRA online event. And it's my pleasure to introduce Michelle Mendez as he talks about SharePoint and how to use Power Platform to integrate with SharePoint tools and capabilities. So I will turn it over to you, Michelle, and good luck in your session.
All right, thanks, Dwayne. Good night, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. So my session is going to be about SharePoint low-code customizations using the Power Platform. Before I begin, I just wanted to introduce myself and give a little bit of context about my background. So currently, I am working as a senior consultant at Avanade Ireland. I'm a Microsoft MVP in Microsoft 365 apps and services. I've worked in the IT field since 2008, and my background is a developer background. So I started my career as a C# developer. Then I became a SharePoint developer / SharePoint consultant. And currently, I'm focused on customizing and developing solutions for Microsoft 365 and Power Platform. And also about my background, I'm from Brazil, and since 2018, I have lived in Dublin, Ireland. If you want to get in touch after the session or to follow me to see the content I'm posting on the social media like LinkedIn or Twitter, you can find me at those handles here. For LinkedIn, it's /in/Michel CS Mendes, and for Twitter is at Michel Carlo. So the agenda for the session, we are going to start only explaining the possibilities of extending SharePoint with the Power Platform, just a quick overview. Then we are going to dive into a little bit of more details of how can we extend SharePoint using Power BI, then Power Virtual Agents, and at the end, the two most important tools to me to extend SharePoint from the Power Platform that are Power Automate and Power Apps. And after I dive into some customization cases and explain some limitations, I'm going to give a demo of how everything connects together so you can have an idea of how those customizations would look and what can be achieved with it. So why would we customize SharePoint with the Power Platform? In most of the cases, it's already included in the Microsoft 365 licenses. So your company would be already paying to use Power Platform to extend SharePoint. You also won't need to maintain a separate infrastructure. So for example, if you wanted to develop some sort of pro code customizations, let's say, if you wanted to develop something using Azure Functions or Azure Services, you would need to maintain a separate Azure infrastructure and pay for it separately, pay for the usage of it. It's quicker to build the customizations and easily to integrate with other Microsoft 365 apps. What I mean by this is, for example, everything that's included in the standard Microsoft 365 license that has connections in the Power Platform can easily be integrated with those customizations. Some tools such as Microsoft Planner, Microsoft Teams, Microsoft Outlook, you can develop integrations easily with Power Automate, with Power Apps. To develop those integrations, you won't need to have pro dev skills, even though you can combine some pro dev development with Power Platform as well, but initially it wouldn't be required. And the main important thing in those requirements or suggestions of using Power Platform with SharePoint to me is that the end of life for SharePoint design workflows and InfoPath form is kind of declared. And those were the tools we used to build custom forms and workflows for SharePoint. So for InfoPath, we know it's going to have an end of life in 2026 for the SharePoint Designer workflows. They had two engines available, the SharePoint 2010 engine and the SharePoint 2013 engine. The 2010 engine is already discontinued, and it's expected that the 2013 engine will be discontinued as well. And two other good things of customizing SharePoint with the Power Platform as well is you can find a lot of examples in the community for free. So you have a lot of blog posts, a lot of videos, a lot of samples that you can download and maybe simply copy and use in your tenant. And we know that Microsoft is continuously investing in the Power Platform and its integrations with Microsoft 365. So we expect to have more features to be released. And we know that everything that we are developing on top of the Power Platform to customize and extend SharePoint is going to be supported in the near future. For who doesn't know, what's exactly the Power Platform? It's currently made of 5 main pillars for each type of application development or customizations that you use to build for your apps. The first and the main one is Power Apps that you use to develop your custom applications. Power Automate you would use to develop custom workflows or automate processes. Power BI, it's a tool that we use to develop reports and do analytics on top of our data. And we also have Power Virtual Agents that we use to build low-code chatbots. There's a new child in the family that is Power Pages, but we are going to see that it's not used to integrate SharePoint, but can have some integrations. Can have some integrations from the product to SharePoint, but not to extend SharePoint itself. What we can do with each of those tools in terms of customizing SharePoint. With Power Apps, we can build standalone Canvas apps that will be a full application, a full app with a custom look outside of SharePoint, or we can build custom forms for SharePoint lists or libraries using Power Apps. With Power Automate, we can build cloud flows on top of lists or libraries data. With Power BI, build the reports on top of lists or libraries data. Power Virtual Agents, they can't connect directly to SharePoint, but we can call Power Automate flows that read or write data to SharePoint and then send the data back to Power Virtual Agents by using the license that we have with Dataverse for Teams, which is included in Microsoft 365. And as I said, for Power Pages, it cannot extend SharePoint, but what we can do is, because the data from Power Pages comes from Dataverse, if there's any document that you want to expose in a public site, you can configure the Dataverse integration to store data in SharePoint and then enable the SharePoint integration in your Power Pages websites. Just to have an idea of how a solution would look connecting all those tools together with the same SharePoint lists or libraries as a data source. Let's say we can have a SharePoint list or a SharePoint library with our custom columns, custom data that we wanted. On top of that, we could create at the same time a custom form only using the Power Apps custom form that we create directly in the list. We could also create a custom Canvas app totally separated from the list, which will be a separate interface. And that same Canvas app can be packaged and deployed to Teams as a Teams app. So we can reuse the same Canvas app as a Teams app. And also, on top of the same SharePoint list or libraries data, we could have approval workflows that were created using Power Automate. And then we request the approvals through Teams or Outlook by using adaptive cards or the out-of-the-box approvals connector from Power Automate. And on top of the same data, as I said before, we can have a bot connecting to the SharePoint list using Power Automate that would then manipulate that data. And finally, after we have all of our data manipulated, we then could get some insights on top of it by creating Power BI dashboards. And now that we have a quick overview of how all those tools could connect together, I'm going to explain a little bit more of what are the different types of customizations that we can do with each, starting with Power BI. So the common scenarios of creating Power BI reports from SharePoint. The easiest and quickest one is to create a report directly from the list or the library. It's quick to build, but it's pretty limited. So what happens in this case is that the reports you create, they are going to be reading data from only one list. You cannot be creating advanced reports, connecting data from multiple lists and crossing information, or maybe doing joins using DAX formulas, Power Query, all of that. So you have to simply use the list and create simple visuals, and that's going to be it. On the other hand, if you want to create advanced reports, as you would do on top of other data sources like SQL Server or Dataverse, you can then create the report from Power BI Desktop, connect it to multiple lists and libraries, and then that type of report, you could publish it to the web and make it available to be embedded in SharePoint pages. So there is the Power BI web part that you can grab the dashboard proper URL and paste on it, and then your Power BI dashboard would appear on the page. But important to have in mind that if you want to do that, embedding a Power BI dashboard in a page or sharing the Power BI reports directly with users, you would need to have a Microsoft 365 E5 license or a Power BI Pro license to be able to share the dashboards, because it is required to have the Pro license to share the dashboards, and the Pro license is included with the E5 license. Another thing important to have in mind while building your reports as well is that direct query for Power BI is not supported with SharePoint. So what happens is you have to configure import mode for the SharePoint data source, and as soon as you publish the report to the web, you would have to open the data source and configure a few refreshes a day as you wished, bearing in mind that for the Power BI Pro or E5 license, you can have up to 8 refreshes a day only. So you have to balance the number of refreshes you would need to do every day. The next tool that I'm going to explain is Power Virtual Agents. So the scenarios are pretty simple, as I mentioned before. Mainly what we can build is create a bot if we want to interact with data from SharePoint, like read data or create data or trigger SharePoint REST API. We would simply create a Power Automate flow that does all the tricks for us, then sends the response back to Power Automate. We can pass parameters to that Power Automate flow and send responses with multiple values as outputs as well. So then based on the flow responses, we can then put some logic in our Power Virtual Agents topics and proceed to different topics or different responses according to what Power Automate sends to our bots. If you want to use it based only on Teams, it's a good thing because you can use the Dataverse for Teams version of Power Virtual Agents, and that is included within the Microsoft 365 licenses. So if it's for using only within Microsoft Teams, you won't pay any extra licenses for it. But if you want to publish the bots to different channels, like public websites or Facebook or something like that, you would have to pay for the premium Power Virtual Agents license. As I said, the two first tools, they have some applications to connect with SharePoint, but they are not quite the most yet used. So I think to me, the most important tools from the Power Platform to use with SharePoint are Power Automate and Power Apps, as they are kind of replacing the previous tools that we use to customize SharePoint workflows. So in the case of Power Automate, we will be mainly replacing what we would be doing with SharePoint Designer workflows. Then I'm going to dive a little bit more in Power Automate and Power Apps. What are the common scenarios for SharePoint flows? We can create the flows, and instead of scheduling the flows or automatically triggering it, we can add custom buttons to SharePoint views, and then those buttons can trigger the flows manually when we click the buttons. We also can enable recurring flows that, to me, would work as we used to do previously in SharePoint on-premises with the timer jobs, where we create jobs to check data and update things. We easily could do it with Power Automate in scenarios like create due date reminders or send a summary of items that are awaiting for an action, things like that. We can implement approvals using the approvals connector or adaptive cards. Or as well, if you don't want to build anything from scratch, there is a lot of templates in the templates gallery from Power Automate. So you could simply create a flow based on the template and then start modifying it as you wished. There is a new feature that was released recently that you can have a Power Automate as part of list templates. So currently, it's only enabled for a few of the Microsoft templates that are out of the box in SharePoint. So when you want to create a new list, if you select the list, work progress list type, work progress tracker, content scheduler, recruitment tracker, or recruitment tracker, one of those three types, you could then enable a Power Automate flow when you create the list. And then at the same time, you enable the flow, it will be created in the list of your flows, and you can customize it if needed. But it's a pretty cool feature that we are seeing, like the Power Platform tools being automatically integrated into the list templates as part of the list templates, let's say. One nice thing that maybe a lot of people don't know about Power Automate is that for advanced scenarios where we don't have the exact action in the out-of-the-box connectors for Microsoft 365, we can use Microsoft Graph to do the actions for us. So if the action is available in Microsoft Graph, for some of the actions, we can use the Office 365 groups action called send a HTTP request. So basically, it will do a HTTP request to Microsoft Graph, get the response, and we can then parse it in our flows. We add a lot of more actions using the Office 365 groups version of it, but for now, the number of endpoints is limited. So it's not all Microsoft Graph endpoints that we can use in the preview action. Some good samples that we can do by calling Microsoft Graph, and we wouldn't be able to do by using Power Automate, is to create an Office 365 group. We cannot do it directly from Power Automate. We cannot create a planner plan directly from Power Automate, but by using Microsoft Graph, we can do it. And one thing to have in mind, as I said, using the Office 365 group, the version of it for the send a HTTP request action, by using this, you have a limited set of endpoints that you can call, but if you wanted to call any of the other endpoints from Microsoft Graph that are not available to call with the Office 365 group actions, you could then use the paid version of it, the premium version, which would be done using the HTTP connector or HTTP to Azure AD. But obviously, you have to pay a specific Power Automate license for it. On the same way that you can do it with Microsoft Graph, you can use the SharePoint REST API for advanced scenarios, specifically on the SharePoint connector where you don't have that action available in the SharePoint connector. So for example, some sample actions that you could create that they are not available out of the box. Create sites, create lists, retrieve item version history. So if you need to do those actions in your flows and we don't have that action available, we can use the send a HTTP request to SharePoint action. Another cool thing as well is that even though you cannot use the SharePoint REST API directly from Power Apps, Canvas apps, you can use that action in Power Automate and call a Power Automate flow from a Canvas app. So basically, you would be calling a flow that does the actions in the API and sends the response back to a Canvas app. Some other cool things you can do with REST API are some actions that are not available out of the box from the SharePoint UI, and you would previously need to use only PowerShell to do. So for example, for a SharePoint modern page, by doing only configuration changes via SharePoint UI, you cannot hide the page title, but you could do it using PowerShell by changing the page type. The same can be done with Power Automate. So in a Power Automate flow, you can trigger a flow that hides the page title. The same thing can happen in this case here. Like if we wanted to hide a SharePoint list from the site titles, from the site contents, we previously needed to do it using only PowerShell, but by using a Power Automate flow that calls the REST API, we can then do the same action and hide the SharePoint list. So it's cool to have in mind that because in some cases, even though maybe it's easier to do things with PowerShell, not all the time we can install or use PowerShell in our machines. But Power Automate, if allowed by the company, you can run it as long as you have permissions to do the actions in the SharePoint site. And we were talking about using a tool as low-code tool, but now we are showing how to call APIs and do requests, HTTP, things like that. It can look a little bit complicated, but if you know how to parse it properly, it won't be. So what I mean by this is you can do your actions, you can do your calls by using the HTTP connectors to Graph or SharePoint REST API. But as soon as you get the response back, if you want to manipulate anything in your Power Automate flow in an easy way, you can then use the parse JSON action with the outputs from the previous action. If you use the parse JSON action, you specify a schema for the outputs. So basically, you send a content to the parse JSON action. It generates the outputs for you. And the outputs of that action can be then used in actions after that in the flow and easily recognized in the dynamic content pane. So you can simply search for the properties you want to use. So the easiest way to use the parse JSON and get started is like you create a sample flow to do the request, run the flow one time, then you grab the outputs and generates the schema from those outputs from the test run for that flow you executed earlier. If you want to do as well the referencing those properties without doing the parsing JSON option, if you want only one value, for example, you can simply reference the objects directly in the expression pane, but it could be a little bit trickier if you don't know exactly how to access the properties. Basically, you have to know like the patterns of how to access previous objects properties in the expression pane. My recommendation is still use the parse JSON action because it's pretty easier to do. If you find still using those APIs, the Graph API and SharePoint REST API trickier, I strongly recommend that you check out some blog posts or samples from the community because there's a lot of content around it. So you can simply copy or follow instructions to create actions where you don't find them in the out-of-the-box Power Automate actions. And to wrap up our explanation about the types of customizations, as I said, the latest, most important one that are Power Apps, Canvas apps. We can have two types of Power Apps, Canvas apps built on top of SharePoint. First one is the standalone app, which is a full app with a full custom experience built from scratch. You have to recreate how to browse the data, how to filter and sort and everything, but it's going to be quick to build than traditional development in several scenarios. It's ideal to target small business problems because there are, with Power Apps, Canvas apps, it's quicker to build the app, but at the same time, it will have more limitations than traditional development scenarios. So if we tackle small business problems, it's going to be more productive and the apps are going to be more performant. And as we know, we have some pain points comparing to traditional development scenarios as SharePoint Framework, for example. We know that the app can get slower if we add a big number of controls, if the data sources grow too much, if we have a big number of data sources as well. So there is an important limitation in that sense. Instead of creating a big app with a lot of data sources, think about breaking the app in small pieces whenever they make sense. So you would have multiple apps instead of one giant app. The disadvantage as well of this approach is the list connections cannot be dynamic. So the app has to have the SharePoint lists added during build time. So you cannot change the site where the list you are connected to lies. For example, if you have 5 sites with the same list, if you are using a SharePoint framework solution, you can, during runtime, change the site you are connected to and then read a different list. The same doesn't happen with Canvas apps. You would have to you would have to add all the data sources you need to access during build time. So that's a problem compared to traditional development. The other type of form of application that we can build with Power Apps Canvas apps is a custom form on top of a SharePoint list or a library. Why we would be doing this? Because simply we would be building only the form. So we would be reusing the whole SharePoint list or library functionality, such as filtering, sorting, grouping, applying list formatting. And the users, sometimes they are already used to using the list, to using the library. So they like that experience and they simply wanted a custom form. They obviously could be building a custom form using JSON formatting, but the thing is, with JSON formatting, we can do only a few things to customize the form. So we could add the footer, a header to the form, group the fields in sections, but there's no behavior customization. And on the other hand, if we use a custom form with Power Apps, we can have basic customizations as rules and some behaviors only with drag and drops, or even if we cannot do it with drag and drop or configuring settings in the studio, we can do it with a few formulas. We can use regular expressions or custom logic to validate text fields, which is something that we cannot do out of the box from a SharePoint list or library column. There are some differences as well, not only the fact of customizing only the form when we build a custom form with Power Apps. So the main difference is that it's a special type of app. So it won't be listed within other Canvas apps from make.powerapps.com or the Canvas apps mobile app. And the other problem as well is that it's a bit tricky if you want to export a form to a different list. So let's say a case that you have the same list in a development site and you wanted to have, even in the same tenant or a different tenant, a UAT version of it and the production version of it. And you wanted to export a form from dev to prod and from dev to UAT and from UAT to prod. You couldn't simply export the form and import it and change the list data source as you would do with a normal Canvas app. So you have to export a package, modify, extract the contents of the package to then modify the site URLs and list IDs. Then you pack it again and publish it into a new site. So it's a bit tricky to do. There is this community tool that you can use to export a package, actually to modify the exported package so you can import it again in a destination list. Alternatively, if your form doesn't have too much customizations, what you could do is simply copy the form from the source and paste it into the destination if you already have all the columns created. So what would happen is, instead of clicking in the menu and selecting copy, then paste in the destination form, you simply use Ctrl-C and Ctrl-V to copy and paste the form in the destination. So it would work straight away. Remembering that you would have to copy all the events from the form pages in the SharePoint integration formulas manually. Like by doing this copy I mentioned, you would be copying only the form and not those events. Important to have in mind as well is that the events from the SharePoint form, they run the SharePoint form in comparison to a full Canvas app, a full standalone Canvas app. They run in a different way. So for example, the screen on visible event that runs when you open a screen in the app start event, unless you manually trigger the navigate screen on visible event, they will trigger only on the first time you open a form. That is, when you click the first item when you open a SharePoint view. And what happens is, if you close that item and open a new item, and if you don't reset the variables in the SharePoint integration events, you would get the second item open with the previous values of those variables you created. So that would be a problem if you wanted to reset the state of the form, for example, or even erase things that you use temporarily in the previous item you opened. And by those events, I mean you have all those 5 events in this object here, SharePoint integration, that you find inside of your custom app that you create when you create a custom form. Those events are exactly a mapping for when you click or execute any of those actions, like create a new item, view an item, edit an item, or save an item, or cancel saving. Whenever you click any of those options, those specific events would be triggered. So for example, if you created variables, and if you want to erase those variables whenever you are going to edit a new item, simply erase those variables when you on the onEdit event. And then when you click any option to edit an item, those variables would be erased. The same thing for the onNew. If you want to erase everything when you open a form with a blank item to be created, you can erase those elements, those variables on the onNew event. Problems we have to have in mind, regardless if it's for SharePoint custom forms or a full Canvas app, the main one is delegation. That happens even for any other data source, but it's less than what we would be worried in terms of building custom SharePoint applications. So for example, if we were to build a custom application using custom code, we would have to worry about the 5K items limitation. That is the out-of-the-box SharePoint threshold that everybody has to worry. But in the case of a Canvas app, we would need to worry about a limit of 2K items. So basically, we need to know what are the operators that we can use connecting to SharePoint so we get our data with the right results. What I mean by this is, if you use operators that are supported for delegation with SharePoint, we are going to send the query to SharePoint. SharePoint gives us the results back, and then we can see everything correctly. So in this case, we see filter combined with starts with is supported with SharePoint for delegable queries. So we send a query to SharePoint, it processes it, sends the results back. Whereas if we do search, which is a not supported operator for delegation with SharePoint, we might not get the right results back, because SharePoint would send the first results from the data source, and then we do the search locally on top of that data. So bear in mind, whenever you are building solutions using Canvas app, pay attention to the operators, if they are delegable or not. And if they are not delegable, you probably will see the warning sign shown in your components. Some tricky bits and limitations that we have to have in mind when using either Canvas apps or a custom form is that content type support is a bit limited. That even though we can use content types in the forms and detect the content types and change the content type value for an item, if we want to have the same behavior as we would have with the out-of-the-box forms, that for a content type, if a field is not added to the form, the field is not displayed. If a field is not added to a content type, the field is not displayed into the form. We would have to rebuild all that behavior in a Canvas app. So it would be a little bit more work to work with content types, but it works. Just important to have in mind that. We have some field limitations as well. Most critical one to me is managed metadata, where we have a 20 item limits per query. We can query all the managed metadata term groups, but in each of our queries, we would have only 20 items returned. So we wouldn't have a scrollable drop down, for example, with the full results of that metadata items source. And you cannot see the items in a hierarchical view, which would be a problem as well when we design metadata with a hierarchical view. The other problems as well is that for location image fields, you can use them as view only. For URL fields, you can update the fields, but only as text. You cannot update the description of the URL field. It's only the URL itself. And one very important thing as well is that whenever you create custom rules by using a custom form with Power Apps, it's important to disable the quick edit view in SharePoint, because what happens is we don't enforce the rules on the back end when we customize the form and put rules on it. with Power Apps. So you have to disable, I recommend you to disable Quick Edit View to avoid the users to be bypassing the rules by editing the list or library metadata in the Quick Edit View. In terms of the whole theory, that's it. And now I am going to show a little bit of how the solution would work, how some solutions would work connecting and extending SharePoint with the Power Platform. Just to begin to compare what we would have in a SharePoint list out of the box without doing any type of customization, it's pretty simple. So this list is a list created using the event itinerary template, no customizations added. We can see that it's just basic list with simple list formatting applied to it. The form itself is pretty simple. There's nothing advanced on it. It's simply a vertical long form. It's not very user-friendly. On the other hand, we have created a copy of that list here where we have customized the form using Power Apps. We have applied some list formatting to make it look a little bit fancier, having the groups with proper formatting. And in the list form, as I mentioned earlier, we can add not only laying out things differently by creating a custom form with Power Apps, but we can add some custom behaviors that are not possible out of the box, such as validate text field formats. So for example, in this case, for the session code field, it's only going to accept values that I put in the format of having 2 chars, dash, and 3 numbers. So basically, if I try to put something that's not that format, it's going to warn me that's not in the correct format. But as soon as I correct it, accepts it, everything is okay. Another cool thing that we can do as well is if we use a Power Apps custom form, we can connect to multiple lists and then filter things differently. So in this case, this is a lookup field that normally would be filterable only by the primary field. But by connecting it directly to the lookup source and doing a custom query in the field, we can then filter items by different related fields, not only by the primary one. So for example, if I wanted to filter logic apps, I can type logic, hello only, I already found it, or Azure. It makes the experience better for the users. The other thing that we can do as well with the custom form is to connect to different data sources. So like I can connect the Office 365 users data source to check who is the manager for a user. So for example, if I check for one user without a manager, it won't find it. But if I check for the user that has a manager, I can see it's going to detect what's that user manager. It says that myself, I am the manager for Carlos here. Another type of validation that we can do, for example, it's validating a field comparing to another field. So we obviously could do it easily by putting validation in the columns in the out-of-the-box form. But in this case, we can put any type of behavior by comparing two date types, the date and time fields. So for example, I wanted to compare if my session, the start time is after the date time to show a warning message. If I change the start time to be after the date time, I can then show to the user that the end date has to be after the start date and time. One thing that we can't do out of the box, and we can do by creating the custom form as well. In this case here, we created a kind of a related table that as we would have in InfoPath by linking to a related list that we can create like a separate list of activities, in this case, connecting to the sessions list. We can use even an integer field or a lookup field to filter the items, but we would be able to manipulate related items directly from the form. So instead of creating an item in a list and then opening the related list and linking the item into it, we would be able to then directly from the form create related items on child lists. So we would be able to simply add a new item. It would be adding an item at the end. When we save the form, it would be pushed to our related list. Another point that we can do that's not possible out of the box with those custom rules is to validate attachments extensions. So for example, in this situation here, it's not warning me that I have a problem because I uploaded only a PDF. The field is configured to accept only PDF and docx files. So if I try to upload a Word document, it's going to accept it. But if I try to upload an image, it says that I only should upload files with the extensions PDF or docx. So it's going to block me from saving. If I try to save the item, the customization in the form is telling me that additional info is invalid. Another cool thing that we can do by connecting with the Office 365 groups connector is that we can read the group's membership to test if a user is a member of a group or not. So in this case here, this current user is a member of the approvers group. He can change the status of an item and save it, no problem. After fixing my additional info tab, we can save the item, edit the data. But if I try to open the same list with a user who is not added to the approvers list, as the logic in the app validated the membership of the user is not a member, he only sees the status of the item, but he can't change it. So that connector can be used to validate membership not only on Office 365 groups, but on Office 365 security groups or Azure AD security groups. So you don't need to have a whole Office 365 group created with that purpose. You can simply have a security group. And as I explained earlier, even though we used a custom form to extend the list, we are not restricted only to this way of customizing the SharePoint list. If we want to build as well separately a full Canvas app, we could do it. In this case, we have a full Canvas app created on top of the same data. So the same sessions register, the event registration sessions list was connected to a Canvas app. And then from here, we rebuilt the interface to find or open the sessions from scratch. It allows you to customize things differently, but obviously, as mentioned, it's more work. But the cool thing of this is that it can be reused in more ways, as I mentioned about the Teams application as well. So like if you want to add the same app to Teams, you can add it. And by adding the app and publishing into Teams, when you add it either as a personal app or you add it as a Teams tab, there are some values that you can parse from Teams to detect what is the theme that you are using, so you can make the app blend better into Teams. In this case, I'm using the Teams clear theme, but if I change it to the darker theme, my app is gonna reflect how my theme looks if I refresh it. Because inside of the Canvas app, we added some logic to validate which is our current theme. And if I go back to the previous theme, refresh it again, it simply rolls back. One thing that we can do with pro developer skills in SharePoint will be to build SharePoint web parts, but if we don't have it, we can even reuse a Canvas app as a web part in a SharePoint page. There are two possibilities that I see as the easiest ones to do it. The main one is to use the out-of-the-box web part from Microsoft that we have in SharePoint. It's easy. You simply copy the link and paste it into the web part, and then your Canvas app is going to work embedded in a SharePoint page, but it doesn't have too many customization possibilities. On the other hand, if you use web part, which is available in the Microsoft 365 PNP repository. The web part is called PNP Enhanced Web Part. You can then pass some parameters to the Canvas app you are embedding in the web part. In my case, I passed only some values from the current SharePoint theme. So basically, what happens with this is that if I change how the site looks to a more bluish theme, the web part is going to pass the values to the app, and I can adapt my app to look like my SharePoint site theme. But you could also pass more parameters as values from other web parts to the Power Apps app embedded as a web part. So you can make the app look more dynamic, or maybe filter content based on other web part selections. So that's it for Power Apps. But as I said, we also have the possibility of, after putting everything together, building a Power BI on top of the SharePoint list or libraries content. And by using this, we could kind of have some analytics on top of the SharePoint data, as we would be doing for any other data source. We can be drilling down SharePoint content and finding items based on our Power BI filters, then adding a link directly to the list item to edit or view it. It's pretty simple to do. Just generate the link with the dynamic URL, passing the current item ID, and you can open it to edit the properties. Then you can save and do your changes if needed. And that web part we used to embed the Power BI report is the same way as we would use the Canvas app one. So it's simply you generate the BI report to embed in SharePoint, paste it into the web part, and it works magically. To wrap up, there is just one other thing I wanted to demo here. In the same way that we interacted with the data from the app, or we could interact directly from the list. On the last example that I have to show here, I am using a Power Virtual Agents chatbot and a Power Automate flow connected to it to read data and write data to SharePoint. So in this case, it's a simple bot to add entries to the sessions list. So the bot is triggered by any of the trigger phrases, such as add session. My bot is going to prompt me for some details about the session. Adding the session title, sample, description of the session as a description of it. I can pick the location of where it's going to be hosted. And then my bot processes the item creation, adds it to the SharePoint list, and gives the link with the session item back to me. And obviously, in this case, I added just a few fields, but you could be proceeding adding the other fields you wanted to add here. See how the whole thing flows together. Like I created an item from the bot calling a flow, and then I can edit it using a form. And if I refresh my Canvas app, I could see everything added below it. So I see my demo session added here. So that's it for what I had to show, Dwayne. Is there any questions?
I don't see any questions in the chat. So now, great presentation. Great to show the power of integrating those capabilities of Power BI and Power Platform into SharePoint. and teams even. I saw you had some team stuff in there as well. So very cool. Nope. Did have a comment that it was a very clear explanation. So thank you very much.
Cool.
Well done. And yeah, since there are any questions, I want to thank you, Michelle, for the great presentation and for contributing to the GIRA online event. Thanks to everybody to everybody that attended. We will take a quick break and be back in 10 minutes with our next session. So stay tuned, and we'll be back here in the same place. But until then, thanks, Michelle. Have a great rest of your day.
All right.
And
you too. Thank you.
We will get things going with the next speaker. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hello, Chimmy, is it?
Oh yeah. Hi, Dwayne.
Hello. How are you doing? If you want to share your screen.
Oh yeah, you can.
Yep, I can see you.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you.
If you got a screen to share, let's get things set up, and then we'll start. Then we'll start at the top of the hour.
Yeah, I think I've got a screen to share.
There we go. There we
Can you
are.
see my screen? Yeah, that's it.
There it is. Yep. What's your session on?
So my session today is on demystifying the Power Platform Admin Center.
Power Platform. Okay,
okay.
Power Platform Admin Center. All right.
That's right. Yeah.
All right. And is it?
That's it.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, just leave that there. Okay. Is the pronunciation correct? Chimmy? Is that
Chimmy? Yeah, Chimmy.
Chimmy.
Right.
Is it Occur?
Occur.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, what I'll do is if you want to just go on mute, we will start in 8 minutes. Everybody that's on the live, feed, we'll start at the top of the hour in 8 minutes. So go ahead and take a quick comfort break, grab a beverage, and then we'll sit back for the next session.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you.
Yep, I'm going to go off camera for a minute as well, and I'll be back in a few minutes.
Yeah, we've got 2 minutes.
Well, it just turned over to 59 on my clock, so one more minute.
Sure.
Don't want anybody that's tuning in specifically for your session to miss any time.
Say that again, sir.
I don't want anybody that's tuning in specifically for your session at the top of the hour to miss any of it.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I think we should start now.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome back, everybody. My name is Dwayne Netwick, moderating this GIRA online session here today. Welcome, everybody around the world, if you are around the world, and great to have this session and have Chimi Okure with me to give a great session on demystifying the Power Platform Admin Center, I believe. Power Platform or Power BI?
Power Platform Admin
Power
Center.
Platform, yeah. Demystifying Power Platform for you. So, enjoy the session, and I'll turn it over to you, Chimmy.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Dwayne. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into this session. Just a further brief information or about myself. I work as a Dynamics 365 Power Platform functional consultant. I'm based out in London, and I've been working around the Dynamics 365 Power Platform space for the past 5 years now. Different projects that I've been working on. My session today, like I've already said, is more about just looking at the Power Platform Administration Center. So for your business users, for your administrators, for your developers, your consultants, just to kind of like get a richer picture of how we can best utilize the administration center. We all know like Microsoft is putting in some more like resources into making that like the most place to go for Power Platform and Dynamics. So things like having a unified how will I put it? Like having a unified portal where you can come in, look at your Power Automate, look at all your capacities. I mean, this is other things that we'll be looking at, at this session as well. So thank you very much. And just to kickstart that, the next slide is more about an agenda of how I set this session to be. So we're going to be looking at the capabilities of the administration center. How do you provision a new environment, down to like creating your databases. How do you manage your users, different types of license. How do you enable apps within the administration center as well? So we also look at different types of settings that we have for our environment. How do we manage them? How do we monitor our environments? We always know about licensing and having enough storage capacity for our applications. So this is also a good way of knowing, yes, we can come in here, do a lot of auditing. We can look into different policies that we can set up, or any data integration that we need to integrate with the different apps. Also, if you have not used much of the Power Platform Admin Center, is also a go-to place now where you can also set up your tickets. There's loads of information utilizing Power Virtual Agent, where it can tell you or give you more information or any help or support that you really need as well. So I'll close it off by looking at the analytics and different types of analytics that you can, they'll drill into your administration center. Please feel free to answer any questions or ask any questions while I'm going through this, okay? So like I said, the Power Platform, if you can see on the screen, on the left-hand side navigation panel, we've got our home environment. And also just to add this is a new look. Right, so this is a Power Platform Admin Center new look. So Microsoft has changed it, where this is where you can also see so many different Office 365 messages, documentation. A lot of documentation on the Power Platform Administration Center is also on the home page of the Power Platform Admin Center. If you have any service health issues, you can also look at your homepage to see whether there's any advisory on different types of any problems you might encounter in your tenant, right? So that's the home. On the left-hand side, you've also got the environment. So this is also where you come in. You can view your environments, you can curate them, you can manage your environments better as an administration or as an administrator, right? The next one is the analytics panel. Analytics, you've got like all your, basically it's Power BI, Microsoft Power BI embedded into the administration center. So you have a detailed view of all your key metrics for all your different Power Platform applications. The next one is also like your help and support. Like I mentioned before, you get a list of your help solutions. You'll be able to curate support tickets for any type of technical support that you might need. Okay. We also have our data integration. So data integration just says it all. How do you integrate data into a Microsoft Dataverse? Basically, Microsoft Dataverse is the underlying database within the Power Platform Admin Center. So things like all your tables, all your forms, this is where all your data are stored. So you can integrate your data with different applications like your SQL Server and your SharePoint and so forth, if you want to build your Canvas apps or your model-driven apps as well. We've also got our data gateway, data preview data gateway was called before, but basically this is, say for example, you want to integrate an on-premise data. So basically acts like that bridge that you have, or that provides you that quick and secure data, how you can transfer your data. Resources, under resources, you have different types of, obviously, the applications, your power apps, your Power Automates, all the different logic apps as well are in your resources. Your data policies, when we talk about data policies, we also create like your DLP, like data loss prevention policies. So as an admin or as a user or as a consultant, you can come in here and set those policies. Basically, like you want to set up a policy that can act like a guide so that users don't obviously unintentionally expose organizational data outside. Okay. So it's quite powerful. You can use that. You can scope it at an environment level. You can scope it at a tenant level. Basically just gives you that flexibility to kind of like, craft your policies in your organization. Okay. So just talking through this, I'm also going to do like a little bit of like, not demo, but just like a live demo, just to show you, if you haven't seen this before, how, it looks, the look and feel is very important. If you can see my screen. So basically this is what I've been explaining. If you go into your environments here, this is my trial environment, but I've set up different environments. There are different types of environments. You can also see regions. You can set up environment based on regions as well. I've also set that up. When it comes to analytics, I mentioned we'll go into this, further in the session. But I just wanted to show you, like, yes, if you click, say, for example, on an environment itself, you can also go into like, different settings of that particular environment. If you want to be able to show or add users, do different things within a Power Platform Admin Center. If you're aware maybe of how we used to work in Dynamics before, you can see there's a lot of improvements here. Instead of going to your settings in Dynamics 365 third-party applications, you can come in here and just manage your users very comfortably. Set up your security roles, your teams, and all the different hierarchies as well that you might need. A lot of stuff that you can do on here. But yeah, like I said, I will drill into that in a lot more detail as well. But yeah, just to show you how it looks and the look and feel of it. Okay. So the next one is very important when it comes to PPAC, Power Platform Administration Center. Basically, yes, you've set up your tenant, set up your you have your tenant, but how do you start setting up your new environment? Or basically, what is an environment? So how I will best describe it is an environment is just, that container, I call it container, a space where you just store, manage, share all your organization's business data. So things like all your chatbots, all your applications, Canvas, model, all your Power Automate flows, different types of flows, you can store that within an environment. Yeah. You can also use it. I've worked in projects where it can also be used to kind of like separate the apps. Yeah. So if you build out, for example, different model-driven apps for a particular, in a project for a particular organization, you can also use environments to be able to kind of like, share those different roles, the security requirements, and also target the audiences that you want them able to see the data that's in the environment, right? However you want to use it, basically it depends on you. It depends on the organization itself. It depends on what you're trying to build. Yeah. I could give you an example. For an example, you can only choose to use it to build just your apps. So you choose all your apps, all your chatbots in a single environment. Like I said, you might also want to separate them so you can group whether you want them to be like your sandbox, your trial environment, or you want them to be obviously your production environment. You can also group it that way. So usually within the space that we work in, we usually have like a test environment, a dev environment, and a production environment. So you can use this environment to group what products that you're working on. Okay. You might also use it in such a way where you might have like work in an organization or a project where they have a branch in the US, they have Europe, they have Asia. So you might also probably use environment to break down the different regions that way. It can also work depending on the project that you're working on. For me, like the first step that you need to be aware of is you want to be able to create an environment, right? So how do you create an environment? You want to be able to define the name of that environment. You want to be able to say what type of environment. You have to define the type of environment you have. I just mentioned we've got trial, we've got sandbox, we've got production, but you want to be able to define that type. And you also want to be able to define what region that you want that environment in. I can just give you a quick demo here, where if you've got environments here, we'll talk about storage capacities in a bit, but just clicking on the new button here, like I said, you have to define your environment. Okay. You can also call it what region do you want that environment to be in? So you can see we've got different regions here. You can also include, a particular region, Asia, Europe, whatever. What type of environment you want? You want to be able to define the type of environment that is. We'll have different types. We've got our sandbox, we've got our trial subscription base, where you've got like the whole third-party applications of Dynamics and also Office 365 inclusive as well. But predominantly, like, you want to use that for like your dev scenarios instances where you have your databases. You also probably want to be we always do a trial environment anyway, so you can also build things and try them on. You want to be able to create a database for that environment, so you can use the existing Microsoft database, so you don't have to start your contacts and your accounts and things like that. You don't want to start building that from scratch. You want to be able to create a database for that environment. Yeah. This is quite new. So we've also included pay-as-you-go with Azure here, where you can also pay for your Azure subscriptions based on your environment as well. If you click on next, you have this ability to add languages, add currencies. So the currencies that you use in your applications, that's what you set from an environment-based level. What security groups do you want that environment to be in? You can also be able to define that when you're adding your database as well. A certain URL is unique, a domain name that is unique to every environment. But when you do set up the environment, you'll be able to go in and click on your URL that will take you to the application itself. But if I click on save, because this is a trial environment, I've already set up my default environment that comes standard with your Power Platform Administrator, with your tenant. This is standard default. It's always advisable not to work with your default environment. Just create different environments, use that on. And I tend to always just leave the default environments and create my own new ones. But because we don't have I don't have a capacity limit, remember that I'm using a trial environment here. It's prompting me to create a production environment to continue. That means I have to pay for that environment. So if I've got a storage capacity of up to 1 gig, it will allow you to add a new environment onto your tenant. But in this particular case, it will not let us, but because I've already have to, and my capacity limit is less than 1 GB. Okay. Yeah, that was just to show you. But if we kind of like go to the next slide, he's also just talking about what I've just explained about provision, like your security restricting groups to people in a particular security group. So you don't want people to have access, say, for example, to a sales app. You can group that environment in a security group. So only people that are in that group will have access to that application. Okay. If users also have a Dataverse license, so when I say that, it means all your customer engagement applications, sales, customer service, field service, marketing, project service, or anything that you create using Power Automate, Power Apps, you will be able to create, users will be able to create an environment as well and enable themselves into that environment. We've also have another way that we can do this. So we have our Microsoft 365 Admin Center. You can also provision or manage your users or your license or enable your applications by going into your 365 Admin Center. You can assign licenses to your user. Say, for example, your Office E5 license, you can assign it to a particular user. You can assign Dynamics 365 Customer Engagement to a user as well on there. And it's quite good to know, because even though you can actually do this, right, within the Power Platform Admin Center, in order for that user to be able to have a license, you need to go through as an administrator, you need to know where to go to. So you need to go into your 365 Admin Center in order to assign that to them. Okay. And if I just quickly run through that as well. So I've got my Office 365 Admin Center here. As you can see, I've got active users, home, active users, under users. You can say, for example, select Jimmy over here. And you can see I've got my devices, I've got my license and apps. So I've got all these licenses assigned to a particular user on here. You can come in, add a user, assign license to that user, all the different, admin Office 365 roles that you can give them, multi-factor authentication, and things like that. Okay. Very good to be aware of this, that, you can utilize this, because sometimes, you say, oh yeah, but I've added the person, but yeah, it's true Azure Active Directory, but you have not assigned a particular license to that user, which needs to be done from here. Okay. Also, when you come into an environment, how do you manage it? You have to go into an environment. You see different details about your environment. On the screen, you can see all. You can do some edits. You can do some changes. You can be able to copy. You can reset. You can see history. And you can also delete an environment as well. But most important for us administrators as well to know is that you can also convert a production environment to a sandbox. You can also convert a sandbox to a production. If you're doing, say, for example, deployment releases, you can also be able to create a backup of your environment just in case of any accidental deletion. Microsoft will always give us 7 days, to recover the environment. Okay. If you want to take out your environment for people not to be able to use it, your apps, your Canvas apps, for example, you can also place your environment in administration mode. Yeah. So when that is done, so only whoever that has the system customizer or an administrator role will be able to have access to that environment. It tends to happen a lot when you're going through, like, say, for example, a deployment release for your different applications. You might want to put that environment, your production environment, in administration mode. Okay. It's also good to note that Microsoft will always run a backup. There will always be a backup to the customer, but not on trial environments. You need to be aware of that. On production, if you've paid for your environments, yes, they will run a backup for that. Yeah, as well. And the backups are also retained. So there's a 28-day retention on your backups with Microsoft. Yeah. If you have not deployed any applications, you have a production environment, you don't have any apps deployed, and you delete your environment, your backup will only be retained for only 7 days. Yeah. So the same thing for your sandbox environments as well, just for you to be aware of that. You've got retention on your environments as well. And if I just go into that, any environment, same one that we use, you can see all the different, so for example, like the environment URL of the environment, what state, what type of environment that is. You can see all the different resources of that environment. If you've done any recent, you can look at your history, things that you've done, what time that environment, what day was it created, and what version it is. You might also manage your releases, for example. So you can do your you can update your releases on here as well. Auditing, I think, is also something that you can do here. Even though you can do that in settings, you can also do that based on environment. You can start to audit your data, and you can also be able to set additional audit settings as well. Yeah. I just curated this, but I just want to retain based on capacity. I might say, yeah, just retain that, yeah, forever, and just click save. Okay. So there's a lot of things that you can do here, but it's just that awareness and knowledge of knowing where to go to look at some of these things and, utilize them as well. Yeah. Hence the session, just demystifying admin center, like, where to go and, do some certain, utilize some certain features here as well. Okay, if I go back to the slide, guys. The next one is your settings. So when you look at your environments, so we've looked at that already before, but just to break it down as well, you can also view and manage the settings in your environment. There are different links, as you can see: product, business, users, permissions. It's always worthwhile, like, if you're not used to the Power Platform Admin Center, it's always worthwhile to go down onto your settings and look at the things that can be done on here. It's packed. There's even resources that you can utilize within your environment settings as well. Different types of links that you can use to manage your organization, like wide settings. Yeah. Time, dates, audits, business, calendar, and different things like that. Currency, very important as well. Under resources on the screen, within the Power Platform Admin Center, we can also select, like different kinds of capacity that we want to be able to manage what we have. Want to be able to know the usage of what we're storing in, for example, a particular tenant. Yeah. So like I mentioned before, so all your tables, all your Dataverse tables, including even the custom, like the system tables, sorry, not the custom, the system tables, they're also included within your reporting, yeah, your capacity reporting. So as you can see there, you've got your top storage usage by environment. So it breaks it down like summary wise, what you use for Dataverse, even Microsoft Teams now is on there as well. And it gives you ability to manage your storage capacity better. Yeah, you can also see from the screen, it's also divided based on your files. So all your files, all your logs, all your databases, yeah, they're also divided in that region as well. I've mentioned before as well, very good to know in case you want to create additional instances. You just need to have 1 gigabyte of that database capacity. You don't require any separate license for that. You used to before, but you don't require that. All you need is just having 1 GB of capacity. If you ever exceed your storage capacity as well, you always receive notifications. As an administrator, you'll get alerts that you're telling you about your overcapacity usage, basically. Yeah. When you come to Power Platform as well, there's a notification on the right hand side. So there's also a notification banner that lets you know when your tenant has exceeded, a particular storage capacity. Okay. I'll leave that for now, but we'll probably come back to that at some point. Still on Dataverse, storage capacity monitoring is quite a big thing, like within your Power Platform admin center. Like I said, it's about knowing where to go to look at these things. You can get as much as information as you want. You want to know where your organization, how they're using your storage capacity. Yeah. So on the resource, you have capacity, and then Dataverse, you can also see different types of capacity based on your Dataverse usage. On there, it will be actually quite good for me to just go back in and let's just do this a bit live. So guys, basically this is what I was trying to explain. It just breaks it down to summary. It gives you a summary of your capacity usage based on database, your files and logs. Don't expect too much here because this is a trial environment. I haven't really done much here, to be fair. But when you go to the next tab onto your Dataverse as well, I've probably utilized one environment here. No details, but this is basically where you go depending on different environments that you have. You can come in here, you can even download a particular just to kind of like drill into your capacity usage as well. I mentioned about Teams, but if you want to see how your organization's Microsoft Teams environments are probably storing their capacity, I haven't got that on here, but yes, you can look at your storage limits that you have on here as well. Different add-ons, if you have any add-ons, if you have any trial on here as well, based on an environment, you can also come in here to kind of like have a view of what capacity that you have and check where your environment's using the maximum storage, or probably if you want to be able to delete things that you don't really need so you can free up some more storage capacity. It's also good to look into this as well. Yeah. The next one is more about data. It's more about integration. Like I said, how do you connect? Like in Power Automate, or let's say in Power Platform, we do have connectors. So connections, basically using it to create a connection set if you're bringing that external data into your Dataverse. So organizations obviously map different types of information. You have different types of integration. We also, within integrations, you have keys that you can reuse along with your projects as well. So basically, how do you start this off? You can start by creating that connection set. So if you're using a development environment, for example, you can create a connection set and then change, say, for example, to a production environment. Yeah. But this is more about integration, data, mapping your data, storing all those connection sets. For example, I'm not probably going to go into this in great detail, but for example, like you want to map your Dynamics F&O, finance and operations. You have an entity in finance and operations. You want to be able to map it back to your Dynamics 365 for sales or customer service, for example. You want to be able to create connection sets. And another key thing is, if you can see on the screen, you always have to give your connection set a name. You provide a name for a connection set that lives in your database. You choose the connections that you created. For example, you've created any earlier, but making sure that you select the right environment for them. So basically, you're looking at this as, you have a single source of truth when it comes to your data, but you're trying to map that across to a different application, for example. That's what that is specifically used for. Mapping, organizations mapping tables between two applications, integrating your data between two applications, by connecting it, and it works and seamlessly, like when you do that. And obviously, just being aware that you can come in here and do that is also very important as well. Okay. We're not going to go in through how, we'll run down through a data integration project, because I don't really have any on this trial environment. But yeah, just knowing that you can be able to go on there on data and utilize that as well. Another thing that comes with monitoring in PPAC is your data loss prevention policies. We all know, like, data is like oil right now. So for your organization, data is like very important. It's an asset as an administrator, as a user, you need to be able to safeguard your organization's data. Yeah. Even if you're building applications, you're building automation, like using Power Automate to drive through your business processes, it also forms part of your organization success, because that's data that you're using to build or automate your business processes within your organization. So you need to be able to really know how to safeguard it, especially as an administrator. Like, we all work in organizations where, yes, we have good intentions. We want to be, you have very good intentions when it comes to data, but anything can happen. You can expose data, there can be leakage. So you use this to curate policies that basically protects the users from unintentionally, I would say, exposing your organization data. Yeah. It's on the screen. Microsoft has a very good document on docs.microsoft.com about how you set this up. Because of time, we're not obviously going to go through that as well. But yes, the policies, it helps you to enforce those rules as well. Yeah, basically enforcing the rules. You have connectors, SharePoint, different types of connectors within your Dataverse. Are you enforcing them either as a business or non-business, and group people based on that group? Yeah. If you put a connector based on a business group, people only in that group will be able to utilize that app or that Power Automate flow, for example. Yeah. Sometimes you might also want to block a particular connector altogether. So you classify them as blocked because you don't want people to use them. Yeah. You don't want that data to be exposed. Okay. We mentioned about auditing. Auditing is we talked about auditing as well. We have audits, we have logs, any changes that are made to your customers' records or any user access, you want to be able to kind of like review that activity later. So within Power Platform Admin Center, you have an auditing feature. It's designed to meet compliance, auditing, security. So it's got all the whole governance it's got all the whole governance incorporated within the Power Platform Admin Center. Just a couple of weeks ago as well, we also even have a new addition to the Power Platform stack, which is like your managed environment. So basically, you also got this within. I mean, it's in preview, but it's also got, or we are going to be getting this within the Power Platform Admin Center. So basically, you want to be able to govern, you want to be able to know what policies and place more security by using the Power Platform Admin Center. With the audits, just like any auditing feature, before or previously in Dynamics, you can use it to kind of like answer different types of questions. So who assessed what user assessed what table, if there was an update to a particular field, who updated that, what record did they update, what time did they update that, those kind of questions. Yeah, they are there based on your environment, on settings. Go into audit, you can set the audit settings. You can even look at system jobs as well. Instead of going through the old way, going through your settings and going through that, you can also just use the PPAC to actually manage all that process. If you want to be able to set entities, so when you build out your table, you set auditing on the table itself, you can also just come in here and set your audit settings within the Power Platform Admin Center. A very important one that we also need to be aware is, in case, for example, that unintentional misuse of records, if you want to be able to know who deleted a particular record, is also somewhere that you can use to see who did that. Is there a particular region or locality? If any updates was made on an environment, you can also come in to your auditing to assess that as well. Yeah. How do we navigate through that? Like I said, it's all about navigation and knowing where to go based on a particular environment. If you click on your settings for your environment, you can also see on the chevron there, you got your audits and your logs, you got your audit settings, like I said. You can be able to set audits, like I showed you this earlier. You can now also retain these audits. You can have a retention policy on your logs as well, based on 7 years. You can custom curate them if you want them to last longer or to last less as well. I mentioned about tables in auditing, so you can also do your entity and your field settings within here as well. Yeah, so you know how you, like I said, create a table, set auditing based on the field. You can also come in here and do that. Okay, he's asleep, so let's wait for it. What else can I talk about auditing? Yeah, I think that's about it. Just audit logs, audits. You can also see your summary view. There's a whole lot that you can do, but all I say is about knowing where to go. Very important. We all raise support tickets, or we've had opportunity of raising support tickets if you're working on a particular project, or even say, for example, on trial environments, you can also raise support tickets as well to Microsoft. Admins use the help and support, kind of like experience in the Power Platform Admin Center. If you want to get any self-help based on your solution, based on your applications, based on your flows, if that issue cannot even be, there's a whole heap of information. I'll show you that in a minute. But if that cannot actually be resolved using that self-help, you can then also raise up a ticket directly to a Microsoft support representative. Okay. You can do that in either way, but it's also a good one to actually just show. I'm just wary about time now, and it's also a good one to kind of like show how that is done. So I think Microsoft utilize what called the Power Virtual Agents, your chatbots as well, in order to say, for example, detailed what support requests you want based on different or any application that you're working on. Say, for example, Microsoft Viva, say for Power Automate is a clear one. You tell them what you need, what helps. So what are the problem type? It breaks it down. Maybe your flow is not working for a reason or something. What is the subtype? Maybe there's some flow errors. Like it even tells you to select the particular environment that you want to ask those questions in. So if you open the virtual agent, so there's like a virtual agent that can help resolve that issue. As I mentioned earlier, if you can't, or if it cannot be done, then you probably just raise a ticket and a Microsoft support representative will get back to you. So yeah, utilizing Power Virtual Agent to answer some of your questions on any type of issues that you have is brilliant. I love it. Utilize it, get a lot of information from them. Yeah. Message center, the same as your 365 admin, also very good to know, but you can see how Microsoft is pulling that back into the Power Platform Admin Center, where you've got your service health dashboard. But either way, you can use that by you can use the Power Platform Admin Center, or you can still go back into your Microsoft 365 Admin Center in order to be able to do that. So it just gives you kind of like a high level message if there's any outage or if there's any links when you feel, things that are being updated, health status of all your applications, your current subscriptions is also a very good place to know that you can go to find those information. Okay. Analytics, you can view your Dataverse analytics right from the Power Platform Admin Center, broken down into the different components of Power Platform, Power Automate apps. You can drill into active users if there's any API calls, if there's any executions as well, it will be able to tell you. But the key thing is who can view the reports. So basically, you need to be an admin. You need to have a license in order to view the analytics for your Dataverse. Okay, not just an admin or global admin, also environment admin, Power Platform admin, Dynamics 365 admin, and obviously Microsoft 365 global admin can also view that as well. Okay. Within the analytics itself as well, under your Power Apps, you also have ability to look at the usage reports. Like I said earlier, Power BI embedded into this report is basically Power BI. The reports are available for Canvas apps only, and it's not available for your model-driven apps when you're drilling down into your Power Apps. Just Canvas and not model-driven apps. So things like I mentioned before, your governance, your any management changes, you'll be able to see a detailed view of all this as well. We've got usage reports, and based on your analytics in Power Apps, you also have your location reports. So where is the view, the usage view? It gives you an insight as an admin. Where are the people using your apps? Like, do you need to adopt any regional, or do you need to do any regional adoption? Do you need to know what trends, like your high level management, do you then want to know where your Canvas apps is being utilized? If it's a global organization, it's quite good to actually drill into your location. Errors. So if you have any errors, insights into any trends, any counts, any types of errors, if you want to drive improvements in your app, you can also utilize the TOAST reports to be able to look at all this as well. Performance wise, yes, service performance, provides all those details for your service or your connectors, or the connectors that you use in your environment, which are the best ones that are having a better response when it comes to API. You can, yes, use this tab to drill into those reports as well. Okay, we've also got your connectors. I just mentioned that. So we use connectors like when it comes to our Power Platform components, Power Automate, all the different components that we have. You want to see some visibility into the custom connectors or connectors that you use in your environment. You've got a 28-day available, or your data is available 28 days in order to be able to utilize and see all those connectors and how they are kind of like improving, your apps. Yeah, who owns them? If you want to see who owns them as well, you'll be able to tell you who owns the apps, what kind of types of connector you use, what sessions, how many sessions have they been, used for, and yeah, loads of information here, loads of information. Moving forward, we've also got our Power Automate analytics. So similar to Power Apps, you've also got like your cloud flows. So basically, you want to be able to look at the reports that you have on here. So you have, like, for example, the runs. So your weekly runs, your monthly runs, your daily runs. You want to see how they're improving. You want to be able to look at the usage, when it was created, when it was shared, any errors that you have for all your different types of flow. All these different tabs provides you with all those valuable insights into your applications. Okay. You can always use it for even your RPAs, your desktop flows. You can use that, not just limited to your cloud flows as well. Okay. Similar usage reports, you want to drill into the different types of uses, different types of flows that you're using in your environment. You want to be able to see who created those flows. Yes, just using this analytics capability, you'll be able to see all that as well. Similar, like same as Power Apps, error reports, insights into any recurring errors that you're having, any yeah, even your email address, whoever created it, last time the error occurred, and things like that. More detailed information on your error analytics. Shared, just the word is shared. So if you shared all your flows, you want to be able to see the different trends in your environment when you share them. Connectors reports as well. This is very important. If you utilize a lot of flows and build a lot of Power Automate flows, gives you a detailed analytics about all the different connectors that are associated with all, different flows that you have as well. It's also quite good because then you've also got things like, you can drill into like, different metrics as well into them. So if you've done any standard or any custom creators, you can drill into the metrics on there as well. Another thing I forgot to mention in all this, you can also change your filters. So you're looking at the last 28 days. You can also go as far back or, however you want to drill into your report. Downloads, yeah. So similar like Excel. Yeah, very good information to have. If you want to take that away and do some further analysis, you can come in and export your data. And yeah, so you can see that visually, like in the reports. What you're seeing Power BI, you can see that visually on an Excel table. You can also view reports in other environments as well, yeah, which is something that we're very easy to forget that. But yes, this has the functionality of allowing you to be able to kind of like not just the environment, you can see the different environments, you can see the time period, you can select time periods within, and yeah, and just drill into them as well. So in summary, I'm just gonna try and conclude because I'm just aware of the time, and then there will be time for questions if anybody has any questions as well. In a ideal perfect world, yes, we know as an administrator, you want everything just to be in one place, right? So you want to do all your administrative tasks in one particular place, even with all the things I've said, your analytics and everything. But within the Power Platform, we also have like editors, like different editors. So your Power Automate also has its own editor. Your Power Virtual Agent has its own editor. You have different things like your compliance, your make.powerapp.com. You have your Office 365. So there's different areas you can navigate to get information from. But we can see the light going to the end of the tunnel that Microsoft wants to bring all this together and just silo them into the Power Platform Admin Center. So things will be quite easy for us to navigate. Just one place, one position, and be able to interact with all the different portals that we have. Okay. I hope this session was beneficial. Something that you probably like. If you're not an administrator, so a user, consultant, it's something that probably you could have looked at and said, "Oh yes, I know where to go," and find out some more information if required. If obviously if you have the right roles and licenses and stuff. I'm happy to answer questions.
Yeah, I don't. If anybody has any questions, please put them in the chat in YouTube, and we will get them. Not seeing any questions. Seeing a couple great session, great presentation. So good positive feedback, which is always good when presenting a virtual session that you're talking to yourself. So so well done. A lot of information in less than an hour. So around the whole Power Platform admin. So I really appreciate you. Sharing it. And I'm not seeing any questions come up. Just positive feedback. So great job, Chimmy. Thank you very much for your time. And enjoy the rest of your evening. It's time.
Thank you.
Time for a beverage.
A beverage. A beverage.
We're in the UK, so
a beverage is needed.
All right, great. Well, thanks for your session for GIRA Online. Thanks everybody for attending online, and until next sessions, have a great day.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you.